attribute healing to God. So this is a sin we want to avoid, is attributing healing and fixing of problems to ourselves or to medicine or to whatever. Ultimately, any sort of healing that happens physically, any sort of problems that get solved externally, is ultimately, it should be attributed to God. Because who gave us the hospitals that we're in? Who gave us the medicine that we have? Who gave us brains to think about the things that we do? Ultimately, it all comes back to God. So we attribute everything good, everything wonderful, as James says, every good and perfect gift comes from where? Comes from above, the Father of lights. I believe that's how it's going. I'm quoting on off the top of my head here. So, but we want to attribute all the movements around us, the good and wonderful movements, to God. We do not need to attribute it to ourselves. And by far, we don't want to attribute it to the work of the devil, which is exactly what they did to Jesus. So let's pick up verse 32. As they were going away, I've pointed this out a couple different times, but Jesus is on the move. We've got one story after the other. As he was going, he heals. So he just made two blind men able to see. And now he is going to make someone who can't talk be able to talk. But the difference on this one is that there is demonic influence. Now, we don't have a lot of details about this story, but with the response, it seems to be clear that this man was mute because he was oppressed by a demon. So we also see that we saw this early on with the two men in the Gadarenes that Jesus crossed the Sea of Galilee, and these men came out, and Jesus spared them from their demon oppression. And so this man was oppressed by a demon, and he was not able to talk. He was mute. And so they brought this man expecting him to exorcise the demon. And when the demon had been cast out. So we do need to realize we have to have a biblical worldview. And so we cannot be mere materialists. That means that we only believe in what we can see, hear, and measure, atoms and in science, if you will. But we don't want to be mere scientists, or empiricism would be the fancy word. We don't want to be those that are only looking at materialism, the matter that makes up the world. A biblical worldview means that we are supernatural, right? Of course, we take into account materialism. We know that God, in a very natural way, works with the world, but he also does things what? Supernaturally, above nature, beyond nature. And part of the supernatural realm involves what? Angels. And that is both angels that are currently following the Lord and doing his bidding, and then also those that are fallen angels, those demons. So we have to understand, we have to take into account to our worldview that demons do exist, that angels do exist. And some of the problems that we experience are due to demonic oppression. You do not need to discount the supernatural world. They do in fact exist. That is a biblical worldview. But we also don't want to take the erroneous position that every sickness is due to demon possession. Well, we just saw a story beforehand that there was no reference to demon possession at all, and people were blind. And there are other, so this was a physical issue. This had nothing to do with demonic possession. So we don't want to go to that error and say that every physical problem we have is due to demons. We also don't want to go to the other extreme and say that, well, demons don't exist. They don't have anything, or maybe they do exist, but they have no impact on physical nature. But in reality, we see right here they do. So if we're going to have a biblical worldview, we must be supernaturalists, and we must not be just mere materialists. We must recognize the supernatural world. And who is in charge of the supernatural world? God, God, the great Almighty, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. There's not a demon that the Lord is not battling against. No, he is in charge of them, and he will put them in their place in their disobedience. So the demon was cast out by Jesus, and what happened? the presenting problem of the fact that he could not speak, he was mute, he was actually able to speak when the demon was cast out. And the crowds did what? They marveled, saying, "Never was anything like this seen in Israel." But the Pharisees said, and here's where they attributed it to the demons. They says he cast out demons by the prince of demons. Oh, he's using Jesus. He's using Beelzebul to cast out these fallen angels. And so he's actually a worker of darkness. And that is terrible for us to attribute the great miraculous works of God when he moves and does them to the works of darkness. So let's make sure that when anything good happens in our life, that we are attributing all the healing, all the good, all the problems being fixed, that we attribute it to the Lord God Almighty. So here's a scriptural insight. It is evil to attribute what God does to the devil. Do not attribute God's work to the devil. Make sure that you are attributing the good and wonderful things to the Lord. And here's the prayer. Father, thank you for your miraculous work in my life. It'd probably be a great exercise, and as part of the application is to think through how's God moved in your life this past week. So the sin to avoid is that I will take time to recognize what God has done this week. How has he moved in your life? And if I attribute to anyone or anything but God, I'm worshiping the creation instead of the creator. So this is where I go back to the fact that we don't want to be mere materialists. So if you have been healed, if you were sick and you got better, or you got some sort of treatment, or you went through some sort of surgery, ultimately, where does the glory belong? It belongs to the creator who gave our doctors the wisdom that they did, who caused all the technicians to figure out how to get the particular tools that they have. Oh, it is the Lord that deserves all the praise and the glory. Of course, you want to thank the surgeon, thank the doctor, thank what medicine has given us, of course. But at the end of the day, we worship the Creator who has given us all of these wonderful gifts to us. So may we be good stewards of those gifts and those resources that He has given us. I pray that has been a blessing to you. I pray you've been journaling your own journals. I pray that you do this, that you read the reading beforehand, that you get one of these little bookmarks at the church. You don't have to take a journal when you do it. You can just take the bookmark if you want, that you read the reading before you watch the video. I pray that you find a space, sin to avoid, promise to claim, attitude to change, a command to obey, or an example to follow. And I pray that you do a journal entry somewhere, some sort of notebook, perhaps in the journaling Bible, whatever you do, that you find a scriptural insight. You take that scriptural insight, you make it a prayer. You take the scriptural insight and the prayer, and you make it an application, and you seek to obey it in your life. You do that day after the day, week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade, and watch your life be transformed. You will be a disciple that will make other disciples, and you will transform the world. I pray that's been a blessing to you, and I'll see you in the next video.